right. We're live.
Hey everyone, welcome to Interactive Brew Company. We're here for Interactive Brew 2.0. We did an Interactive Brew back in April, trying to get everybody kind of involved in that home during quarantine. Wanted people to vote on what beer they want next, and we made it for them. So the first one back in April was a stout, and then the aggro for marshmallow, chocolate, and vanilla. So we did kind of warm out and we named them program. You guys at home was what package that we quickly got the base and still the buzz went over very well. So this time we did it again. We're under lockdown 6 weeks, so I thought it was a good time to get Cody going. And you guys at home wanted another South Florida. So we're making another South Florida. And we'll keep it going. This is Eric Plata, who's our head brewer here at Interactive Brew Company. So he's the one who wrote the recipe. He's going to run this brew for us. So any questions that you have, please submit them. We'll answer them the best we can. We'll try to explain what's going on, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why. So I'm trying to give you guys an at-home educational experience of what we do here, how we do it, and the whole process behind brewing Russian beer like that. So I'm excited to get going. Eric, you want to kind of talk us through what you're going to be doing right now?
Well, at least you can hear them, so yeah. Oh crap, aren't clear. I don't understand. A guy already commented. Oh, good. At least you can hear them. Okay. Crap, I think we lost it completely. Crap. Yeah, we can. Yeah, these two aren't hearing me. Do you wanna put in there that we're like we're trying to get it involved?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Oh, beautiful.
So for our system, we can only fit so much grain into this mash mixer. So we'll be performing what we call a mash transfer, which means that when our grain and water level reaches a certain height, we will begin transferring into our lauter tun, which is this vessel here, which will allow us to fit it all into a larger vessel for rest.
Oh, but you like it.
Sure. I was saying, so for our system, we have a lot of grain into this here. We're going to form something called a mash transfer, which means when our water and grist gets to a certain height in this vessel, our mash mixer, we will begin transferring the mash to our lauter tun, which is a larger vessel, so that it can all fit. And this is here in this lauter tun vessel is where it'll rest, so the sugars can convert. And then we will begin our boil off, which is a process of recirculation. So the liquid from the bottom will recirculate over the top of the water tun to kind of create a natural filter. So it'll clarify the worts using the grain as the filter itself. We have in the water tun what's called a false bottom, and that separates the grist from a dead space underneath it that allows the liquor to flow through. So once this is all in there, we'll perform the rest and then a boil off. We also have Casey, our other brewer here. He is doing what we call a silo chase. So we're taking our 2-row malt, feeding it from our silos outside, getting milled, and then chasing the grain into the grist case so that it all comes in kind of simultaneously. Because again, our grist case only holds a certain volume of grain. So we feed the rest as it's coming in so that we can get it all in the mash mixer. I hope that works. So this here is the lauter tun, where when we transfer this mash mixer into the lauter tun here, you can see it has some stuff in it already. We added our rifle, which just helps it aids in filtration so that the grain bed doesn't become compact and stuck in there. So we have it preheated and holding about 100 gallons of hot water. When we get to that certain level in the mash mixer that we need to transfer, when we need to transfer the lauter, I just got some like weird feedback in my microphone. No, you're good. So when we actually transfer over, it'll float on the dead space liquor, so that it doesn't immediately just dry up and fall to the bottom of the false bottom ring. So here we're adding some of our brewing salts. This is a little bit of calcium chloride, some calcium sulfates, and a lot of it of calcium carbonate. And the reasoning for the calcium carbonate is because this recipe has so much roasted, highly kilned malt in it that what it does is it lowers our pH. Optimum pH, and what we're shooting for here is 5.5. So by adding the calcium carbonate, that helps boost up our mash pH. And the reason why that's so important is it helps with enzymatic conversion, so we get all the sugars that we want from the grain that we're adding. Let me know when you start the transfer so I can explain that. Got a minute?
Yeah, we'll start at about 40 inches. About 20 after.
Okay. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, are we starting with RO water?
Yes, we're using 100% reverse osmosis water. We're fortunate enough to have a reverse osmosis system back there that the entire brewery will run off of. Reverse osmosis, for those who don't know, is water that has been stripped of all of its minerality. So it basically leaves us a nice kind of canvas to build on. So there's 0 minerals in the RO water. We added our water salts to add minerality back into the water that we introduced the grain to. So yes, we are using RO. And we use RO on every one of our beers here at Heron. So right now we are just waiting to get to that certain level where we can begin the mass transfer. This process here, introducing the grain to the water, will continue until we've added everything in. And at that point, when the grain is empty, we will transfer the rest remaining of this grist here into our lauter tun, where it will begin its rest and boil off after resting. I should also point out that we have flake oats here that will be added to the lauter tun. These add a body to it. The beer helps with kind of mouthfeel as well. But we add these into the lauter tun. Yeah, let's take a look at them. That's what they look like, kind of like your basic Quaker oat. Some rolled oats here. You started here?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I don't want to lose that.
Keep them together.
Yeah. My other, I'll just pull in my pocket. Sure. All right, let's do it. All right, so we just started the transfer part of the mash. So Casey just opened up the pipe valve leading to our lauter tun, started the pump so that it's primed and ready to go. But basically, we're taking the grist out of here now and moving it over to the lauter tun. You can actually see it in real time there. I'm sorry. I can imagine. Now that thing rotating throughout this entire process is mash rate. That's sole purpose is just to stir and incorporate the grain evenly throughout the rest. So we'll let that go through rest, but we then stop it during boil off because we want that grain bed to kind of get settled so that it helps clarify the wort. And this is going now, and we'll add the flaked oats shortly. Clogged up. Yeah.
I've got waterproof case in my GoPro. We can just throw it in there. Oh, did I disconnect it? Oh, nice. Or
You have a case for that, a waterproof case?
no, fine, I do.
Oh.
We could just throw it in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So those oats in now?
I throw them in at the,
Tail end?
yeah.
Okay.
You just throw them in, and then they'll mix it into the pot.
Let them float.
Yeah. How long does that cook for?
Yeah, like our typical
5 minutes.
25-minute rest. And a 15-minute roll off. Set up again. Kind of what I'm looking for throughout this process is that it's not clumping, that it's being evenly incorporated. And if it was, we have mash paddle to break some stuff up. You'll see the mash paddle in action when we add the oats. Smells real nice.
Marshall Owen.
Yeah, yeah, I know, Marshall. What's up, Marshall? Thanks for watching, brother. Say it again. This is a 30 barrel batch. This is good. Yeah, we're going. I think it's like 170, like 174. Yeah, it's probably wonky. We'll check it in the water.
I know yesterday it was reading like 140, and then transferring over it was like 150.
Yeah.
The top, so.
So we're lowering the rates right now, or raising the rates right now, so that we can kind of incorporate the top of the mash, that it's all evenly incorporated as it's spinning. Keep in mind, we're still adding grain here and transferring it simultaneously. So there is grain and water still being introduced into the mash mixer and spinning here. And at the same time, we're pumping it over the water so it can rest. And again, the point of doing this is so that we can fit the entire grist bill into one vessel so it can rest. It would be pretty maxed out in this one vessel here. You kind of see some of that color coming through now. That's all due to the roast malt and specialty grain that's added. We're at 645 gallons of RO water. Currently, we're aiming for 1,050 gallons. We find that ratio would work for this beer. At least we want to keep it relatively tight. And if you've received the homebrew recipe, if you take a look at that, it's about 1 1/3 quarts of water per pound. So we're just collecting, waiting until we get that volume of water introduced with the grain, and yeah, we're almost there. Probably all my family, honestly.
So when you applied at Parent, did they tell you about this?
The Interactive Brew? No,
Yeah.
no. but I know we did it last year, so I guess it's kind of hard to foresee with the pandemic and whatever. But it's a great way to keep people involved and interested. And I like the idea last year as well, or the last time. It seems like a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
9 months. So how'd you get started brewing beer?
I got started brewing beer just out of interest in the process. I mean, I was with my uncle the first time we did it. We did a Pilsner. That was just horrible. But it was fun. It was just a good time. I mean, I fell in love with craft beer because of my dad. And, I just found myself asking why beer tasted different. Why colors and flavors and aromas all varied from beer to beer. And then I just kind of dove into it. And then I fell in love with it, started working at homebrew shop. I worked at a homebrew shop in Chicago, and then got my first assistant brewing job at the same time. I was bartending and bar back. So I loved beer, but was more interested in the process and never looked back. So kind of how I started. Kind of a typical origin story, I think, for most brewers, the homebrew route.
What was your first system?
The first,
You were in buckets?
yeah, 5-gallon. I think I went straight into all grain, which eliminates the need for any liquid malt extract or DME, the dry malt extract. And bought an igloo cooler that I used as a mash tun. Ran a copper braid through it, but it worked. I did it on my kitchen stove in my apartment. My wife was really forgiving every time I made a mess. But yeah, it was not ideal, man, having to clean out buckets in the bathtub. Like, but it was fun. It was fun.
First good beer you made?
Actually, I was just talking about this recently. It was a cranberry porter that I did for Thanksgiving years ago. It actually came out really, really nice. My wife still asks me about it. She wants me to make it at the house, and I still have my homebrew system, so I just might one of these days. Cranberry porter.
I think cranberry was on the adjunct list this time. The side hustle next October.
There you go. There you go.
That's the fun part about beer. It's out there. Yeah, it's gotta get a hold of Katie and
So all the grain has been introduced to the mash mixer. So now we're just meeting that volume of water. And again, simultaneously, we're just transferring over here to fit it all into this vessel. But no more grain at this point. We're all in. 100 gallons yet.
Yeah. I want to try open that black valve.
Cool her down.
Yeah, now we're not having rain coming in there. It's gonna
Yeah, skyrocket. So what Casey's doing, Casey's monitoring the blended water now. So we were hitting a certain strike water to introduce the grain, but now we're out of grain. So the water is just coming in super hot. So we're introducing some cold water in the blend to bring that water temp down to basically match the temp of that grain coming in with water so that we don't skyrocket our mash temp and we don't alter our mash rec temperature.
Mention that the naming is still open, or name submissions.
Yeah, naming submissions are still open, so feel free to throw a name out there and be a part of the fun. Join the fun in naming this beer.
Naming is open until Thursday at midnight, and then after that, we'll pick our top 5, and those will get up on the next round of voting for next week. So you can pick one out of the top 5, and that person will win the naming rights.
We're almost there. Such a large amount of grain and water, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but he's spraying it down now. We're almost there. We got about 100 gallons left of water remaining. And then we'll cut that water and then chase the remainder of that grain on over to the water tun where we'll begin to rest.
So, Eric, were you surprised at another stout borderline?
No, not really. It seems to be a popular style, especially with this climate. It's getting colder. People want to drink something bold and dark. But yeah, I guess I wasn't surprised. I think we all kind of anticipating this or an IPA to win. I think most of the brewers voted for lagers, but eventually we'll get one of those out of there. But this is a fun style to brew, especially with the adjuncts. I think it allows a lot more creativity and when to add these adjuncts, adding them to taste. Kind of a fun style to experiment with. With other types of styles, even if a Pilsner is one, adjuncting a Pilsner might be a little more difficult than adjuncting a stout.
So this being Eric's second interactive brew, but your first interactive brew, did you find yourself monitoring the results, kind of getting worried about it?
Yeah, totally. Totally. I think I checked maybe I don't know, at least every day just to see, But yeah, no, I was monitoring it relatively closely. I was curious.
So you mentioned most of the brewers voted for lagers. Did you vote for lagers yourself?
I did. I love brewing lagers. It's kind of my history in brewing, is brewing lagers. So I was looking forward to potentially brewing one, but I'm not mad at it. Not mad at it at all.
Well, we do have a lager scheduled for distribution. You want to speak on that real quick?
Yeah, our next side hustle series, our beer in the series, is an IPL. It should be a really fun, interesting beer. We're using a Bavarian yeast, so it will be lagered. We're hopping it like we would an American IPA or West Coast IPA. It'll be a nice blend between, traditional lagering methods and new school kind of hops and hopping rates. It's dry hopped. It'll be dry hopped at 1.25 pounds per barrel. So it's a relatively big dry hop. And, we're using some new kind of fun hops. We use, German Saphir hops, which is a relative of Hallertau, kind of staying true to the German kind of lagering, recipe design. But then we're also introducing some New Zealand Nelson Sauvin. We've been fortunate enough to have some 2020 crop beer come our way, made available for us. So we'll be using that in the boil as well as the dry hop. But expect kind of a hoppy, almost reminiscent of a IPA, but with undertones of traditional lager of like a Pilsner. So I'm super excited about that one.
It'll be available February, March 2021. And the name is going to be Hard Restart, I believe.
Yep.
So kind of get a hard restart on the new year. 2020 in the past, and into 2021 with a nice fresh start.
Yep. I'm going to begin spraying it down, trying to break some stuff up. Yeah, we still got a couple inches.
Yeah, it should.
Should be all right. Yeah. Let me cast it here. Just rinsing down the side here to get all the grain we can. And again, all this is being transferred over, so we want to make sure we get every last bit of that grain. And all that foam you're seeing is a byproduct of proteins being released by the grain. A nice frothy, looks like a latte or something. That's rocking and rolling. Yeah, it don't look very dry in there.
There's about 400 gallons of water on top of all that grain. So.
We're almost there. And you can see how much water and grain is in this water ton. Our mixer's pretty submerged here. The reason why it's such a big grain bill, and it's just to bump up the amount of sugars that we're able to ferment so we can have a higher ABV beer. Also, the water allows the malt to flow freely, so it doesn't get stuck. Awesome. So we're all in the water ton now. We're all incorporated. This will be a 25-minute rest here. We're going to add the oats right now, and once the oats are added, we'll begin our timer. Let it go, and then we'll begin the Vorloff, which is that process of recirculation from the bottom over to the top. And when we start that Vorloff, we have a sight glass here where all of our tools are, and we'll be able to get a reading on the color, the clarity through Vorloff. It might be a little bit hard to see in a black beer like this, but we know how the system reacts, and we'll end up with a clarified black beer going into our kettle after a Vorloff. So those oats in?
Yeah.
Should I move that rake? Would that make it easier for you? All right, so at this point, Casey moved the rake so that it would be out. They would be out of the way when he adds the oats here. So Casey's gonna go ahead and add these. Good catch. All right, so we have all the oats incorporated, and now we'll let it rest for 25 minutes, and then we begin the process of recirculation over itself. after the 25 minutes. So here we take a mash pH reading, see how we are in terms of mash pH, which in turn will help us with our enzymatic conversion. We want to be within a certain range. So Casey's going to collect a sample. Yeah, yeah, seriously, there's enough space in there. Kind of cool enough. Next time we do a barley wine or something. And then just pull the first running. Yeah. Yeah, that's close. Yeah. All right, guys, welcome back. We just finished the rest and started boil off. So that process of recirculation over itself has begun. So I know you can't really see from that angle, but you can, sure. But it's basically going over the side port, kind of this height over there. But yeah, it's coming from the bottom underneath that false bottom where that dead space is that I mentioned earlier. It separates that grain from the liquor underneath. Then we're just recirculating over itself. We have a sight glass here that kind of shows us our color of the beer. So this is the color of our beer at the moment. So this shows us that there is movement. It's coming from the bottom or top, and we're able to see the color. And if this were a live beer, we could then see the clarity. But we're able to see if there's any floaties of grain in there, chunks or anything that or is unwanted. So we just started that. We're about 3 minutes in. This process will take us 15 minutes, and then after that 15 minutes, we'll begin collecting our volume into the boil kettle, where we'll add our hops and boil the beer for an hour and a half. So we did take that pH reading. We were shooting for 5.5. We got on our pH meter, we got 5.53. So that's a number we can be happy with. We're so far so good, hitting the numbers that we want. So we'll continue hitting the numbers all the way through.
So I know we mentioned the IPL, the hard restart, being our side hustle for February and March, but we are currently shipping out a side hustle right now for December and January release. You want to talk about kind of what beer that is and kind of the process behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the beer that is available now, the side hustle that's currently available, it's called Midnight Snack. Really fun beer to make for the entire team. Hot side, we basically made a robust porter base. So a little more roast going on, a little bit of hop presence, moderate low bitterness going on, allowing the adjuncts in that beer to shine. So we were using mint and chocolate. Once we produce the wort on hot side, we then allow cellar to work their magic in adjuncting the taste. And the beer is really, really nice. It's got real nice mint presence as well as chocolate presence. We use some highly roasted malt to give it a real nice deep black, almost ruby color. We use some United Kingdom hop varietals to give it some real nice spice, and all tied up with the mint and chocolate. Fantastic beer, easy sipper, perfect for the cooler months. Kind of like a dessert in a can.
Yeah, I found that when you first start drinking it, you kind of get the mint right up front, but as the beer sits and warms up, that kind of chocolate character comes out.
Absolutely.
It balances out the mint really nicely.
Yeah, for sure. Letting the beer come up, I shouldn't say too room temp, but warmer than 38 degrees will really allow the malt roast character to shine, rounds out bitterness, gives it more of a fuller mouthfeel, more chocolate notes, vanilla notes, just from the grain and the adjuncts. But yeah, I recommend letting that beer sit out a little bit. In the meantime, have a Karen Gold or something.
Another beer that we just came out with was Coffee Latte.
Coffee Latte.
Coffee Lattes are winter seasonal. It is one that we did last year. Everyone was kind of asking for another coffee beer since we had to stop the production of Kona due to copywriting and all that good stuff. But Coffee Latte, which is, a good beer. It's nice and smooth. It has coffee in it from Germac Coffee Roasters out of Detroit. And we also throw some lactose in there to give it a kind of a latte vibe.
All right, he's asking for a headphone. So these are the cans for Midnight Snack. Really cool label. I think our design team knocked it out of the park. But this is what you can find in shelves. This is a side hustle that's currently available. Connor will show you how this pours. You'll notice the kind of tan off-white head on the beer. That's coming from the specialty malt that's in the recipe. Got a lingering foamy head, great head retention. The legs on this beer are fantastic as well. That deep color, ruby color, I'm not sure if you can pick that up in the camera, but all from the specialty grain as well. The aroma on this beer is just notes and, you know, the mint coming right at you. It's one of the first things you'll notice. But on the palate, you'll get a lot of those deep kind of velvet chocolate notes as well. About 5 more minutes left on this Warlock.
I got worried that was an overflow.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a large volume. So it's pulling quite nicely, doing this boil off and not picking up much of grain byproduct through the sight glass. This is exactly what we're looking for. We want that to be relatively clear before we capture it over into the kettle to boil it. So it seems to be working out all right. Yeah, the point of recirculation is to create a natural filter using the grain bed itself. So we're pulling from underneath the false bottom, where that false bottom is just a screen with some slits into it that allows the grain to rest on it and the liquor to flow underneath that. So we're taking the liquor from underneath that false bottom, recirculating it over itself throughout from the bottom over to the top. And now what that's doing is just clarifying the wort, so we don't have any of that grain residue or bits coming through. In turn would make a clearer product. So whatever we can do throughout every step of the process to ensure a quality, whether it be color or clarity, we want to ensure we take those steps. So this is just another part of the step or steps in brewing that we'll be sure to do.
And for everyone at home, when he refers to liquor, he meant water. So in production of alcohol in any state, it's referred to as liquor instead of water. So we actually have a cold liquor tank and a hot liquor tank. So those are just hot and cold water tanks that we store the water in until we're ready to brew with it. So when we were doing the mash in, we were using hot and cold liquor to mix them up and get the texture that we wanted. And we just refer to water as liquor from here on out.
Yeah, so These hot liquor tanks and cold liquor tanks, they act as reservoirs for our water. So we basically fill those vessels up with our reverse osmosis water. Allows the hot liquor and the cold liquor tank, respectively, to be heated to separate temperatures or maintained at certain temperatures, so that we can blend to ensure that we hit our mash temperature and rest temperature. And again, all that all that liquor is coming from our RO system, our reverse osmosis filtration system. Yeah. So I mentioned the legs on this beer and the head retention, and that's just a beautiful sight. You can see the lacing and all that lacing, and this is the midnight snack that we showed. The lacing is due to the protein from the malt. The head retention is the same way. Have 2 minutes left on the boil off. So right now, what Casey just did, he scaled back that bladder valve. So we're going to start collecting our first runnings, and this is the wort at its kind of peak gravity right now. This is the highest concentration of the sugar that we'll see throughout this hot side process. So he's taking a gravity reading essentially right before we add any more sparge water to dilute this down to our volume. So he's taking a reading now. We always take a gravity reading and pH reading at every step in the process. So we are just finishing boil off, got our first runnings as we're capturing into the boil kettle. So that tool, he put it in. Essentially, it's for our hydrometers to float in. What he's doing there is that pours it in and he's cooling the sample down so that it can read accurately. If we were to throw our hydrometer at this process, it would read inaccurately and not give us a true reading of the amount of sugar in solution. And the same goes for the pH as well. So I'm going to try to move this over. I just want to show you guys how it looks when we're capturing this wort here. You can see that it's running in from the side port in the bottom there. Now that's just being gravity fed from the lauter pump. So we're not using any pumps at this point. The wort's going to want to find its level naturally. So right now it's just kind of feeding into the kettle. Once we get it to a certain level where we need to turn on the pump, we will. And then we'll start sparging, which is the process of introducing more water on top of the grain bed to essentially rinse out the grain and get any residual sugar that we possibly can that may or may not have been converted. So we're just collecting the wort now. Now this part, we typically want to see an hour, hour and a half, what we call lauter into the kettle. But that can vary based on every recipe. But we tend to shoot for hour and a half. And if you were to taste this at this point, it is super sweet, and that's due to all the sugar in solution. So the process of making alcohol, the yeast will eat that sugar, dry it out, and create alcohol and CO2 byproduct. But we just took we're cooling down our first sample of first running, and then that's going to be our highest point of condensed sugar throughout this process. But then we will add the sparge water, which in turn will kind of scale that back with the introduction of water. But yeah, this is just a super sticky sweet wort at this point. You can kind of see how clear it is. Not clear in the sense that you can see through it, but clear in the sense that there are no grain particles in solution. And that's all due to that boil off process we do. Now, this large stack here is an internal calandria. This is all hooked up to our boiler system with steam. So that's how we boil here and heat up anything within the brewery. We have a steam system. So this calandria will allow the wort to come up to a certain temperature, boiling temperatures, and maintain our boil. This top here kind of looks like a hat. That is our wort spreader. So that helps eliminate any like total organic byproducts like DMS, which you don't typically want in beer, any off flavors that you wouldn't want in beer. That helps spread that wort as it's boiling to introduce some oxygen to it and boil off those off flavors. DMS. Yeah, it's essentially the flavor that you would get in like a cooked corn or creamed corn, which is undesirable in beer. It's dimethyl sulfates, I think. It's a long, a long term that I can't spell. We'll turn on some steam jackets. There are jackets on the sides of this vessel as well as the bottom. We'll turn it on once it reaches a certain level, a volume in there, just to maintain the temperature. But what will take us over the boiling point is that main calandria. I mean, we do want to maintain a certain temperature. Although this will be boiled off to kill any bacteria, we can eliminate any introduction to wild organisms or anything. We'll do it. So at the same time that this is collecting here, we'll keep an eye on the grain bed. We don't want it to get too dry. We don't want that water level to get low, below the grain bed itself. And that's when we'll start the sparging process. Smells so good. Yeah, you may hear me keep saying it smells really good, but it does. I wish you guys could smell it. It's what we're getting are a lot of those deep chocolate roast notes from the specialty grain. Now this one's using some chocolate malt, UK chocolate malt, some Carafa 3, which is a debittered roast malt. But you get all of those kind of steeped tea chocolate flavors and aromas, I should say. That's all that's coming up. We have some caramel malt in here that will attribute some sweetness, and that's also what we're smelling. So a lot of the deep chocolate caramel notes. All the stuff that attributes color to this beer It smelled great. It smelled real good.
You want to go walk through the malts upstairs so we can show them live?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we can go take.
Hey, Eric. 15 nights?
Yeah. Get the sound on there.
Hey, Eric. 15 nights? So we're still. Is that not working? Nope. Mother. I'm gonna switch it to.
Roast, really astringent, like coffee bean.
What's our ratio of super dark to the basic?
I'd have to check the percentages again. I think we're using about 3% of highly roasted malt.
I think it's that much color.
Yeah, so I mean, you typically wouldn't want to exceed a large percentage of. I mean, it wouldn't be like a base malt usage. You're using it to kind of spice. So like the way that you would throw like salt in the broth or spaghetti sauce. It's you know it's there. That'd be the most beautiful thing I've ever said, huh? Now we haven't weighed out any of the hops just yet because we're not quite there in that process. We still have a little way to go before we add any hops to boiling. But what we will be doing is getting some more brewing salts to treat the sparge water that we introduced. Because again, we are using RO. So anytime we do introduce water into any part of the beer in the process, we want to treat it. So with treating it, we are ensuring that the entire water profile is similar. So we don't have zero minerality water kind of sparging the grain, rinsing the grain when the mash tun had all of the minerals in it. So. 16.2. Nice, cool. Oh, 16.2 is what our first run is. Now we want to round off into this beer. Now we are adding dextrin to this, which is an unfermentable sugar that will in turn boost up the gravity. So it's unfermentable sugar, but it is sugar, so it'll kind of crank those numbers up a little bit. And yeah. Yeah, so this is Oh, it is? All right. Yeah, we're still collecting. Are you back? Oh, okay, great. So this is still collecting. You can see how much the level is raised. It's starting to kind of steam up in here. So it's still racking and rolling. You can see also the level in the mash tent. Remember when we started, the racks were completely submerged, or the rakes rather, they were completely submerged. So that's how much volume that we've taken from this and brought over to the kettle. So at this point, we're just again monitoring how much wort is leaving this vessel because we want to maintain liquor on top of the grist, the grain bed. We don't want it to get too dry. We'll collect as much as we possibly can, and then begin the process of sparging or rinsing the grain. Maybe we throw a little bit more of this stuff in there if we don't hit that. Oh, okay. Boil it. Boil it. Yeah. This here. What do we typically get for black? I don't remember last time. I think it's like 19, right? I'll leave this here so it doesn't disconnect.
I can kind of speak to that a little bit. So those barrels are all full of Rosalaire, which is our Flanders red ale. We have come out with that twice in the past, once in 2015 and again in 2018. It's a sour beer that we really like to do. It's gone over very, very well. It's won a few awards. It's 100% naturally soured, aged for about 2 years every time. And the first year we did it in 12-ounce bottles, which went really well. Last time we did it was 16-ounce cans, and I think this year it'll be 12-ounce cans. Really looking forward for that beer to come out. It's my personal favorite pairing beer that we make is this beer, so really excited to get that out. It's been aging for 2 years. We're going to get it out. It's a blend of a bunch of different sour beers that we kind of put together to fit the flavor profile of the Flanders Red. And we even put in some of our Fooder beer, which is in there. So really excited to get this out. Probably releasing sometime this month, towards the end of the month. And we're staging all these barrels right now, so we can't show you any of it because we're not doing it. We're going to start racking them out tomorrow and Monday. So we'll get them in the tank, and then we can get it sterile filtered and packaged up. But really looking forward for Rose to come out.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite beers prior to working here as well. So it's really interesting to be a part of that whole curating process and tasting them and talking about them with cellar team. But yeah, I think we have some really fantastic barrels on hand, and I can't wait to get those all blended. The fooders are fantastic too. It's all good.
Beer smells amazing. I really wish people at home could smell the beer.
Yeah, we were talking about some of the aromas that we're pulling from these specialty grains. I mean, deep like chocolate, even coffee, some roast vanilla, caramel malts really coming through too. It smells great in here. I'm sure our packaging team can smell it all the way back there too. Now the hops that we add to this beer are, they're not the star of the show. And like I mentioned up in the mill room, it's kind of like cooking. It's just a spice. It's another thing to round this beer out. The point of the hops that we're using are, they're relatively clean bitterness. They're not high like aromatic hops like a Citra or a Mosaic. You won't find that typically in these type of dark beers. What we're looking for is the malt to shine, as well as the adjuncts to shine. The hops, their sole purpose in this beer is to round it out so that it's not overly sweet. You will taste hop presence, but it's not going to be like a black IPA. So we're using some really neutral hops in this beer, just allowing that malt and adjunct to shine. So we selected some Magnum and Summit. German Magnum, it's known for, well, they're both known for their kind of clean, neutral bitterness. The aromas on them, you'll get some spice, especially with the German Magnum because of the lineage of that hop. They're very traditional German hop. And with Summit, I mean, it's very kind of green and herbally. So I think those will play really nicely with this grist bill. And again, what's happening here is we're just gravity feeding the kettle. So no pumps are on at the moment. The wort's going to want to find its own level, and that's basically what we're kind of controlling. We have a bladder valve up here that we kind of open a little bit, let it flow. We don't want to just slam that open, because if we did, we would end up with a stuck transfer. So we do monitor all throughout this process, just opening it up ever so slightly to allow it to continue to flow.
So I kind of mentioned my favorite beer being Rosalero, Freddie. What's your favorite? I know you're relatively new to the parent team, but what's your favorite parent beer thus
far? I mean, it's always been Rosalero, but I'll try to pick something else. I mean, No Rules is a fantastic beer, and I think that would probably be my second favorite. It's a close first with Rose. yeah, that beer is just really interesting. One of my favorite parts about that beer and being a part of it this year, no rules that is that how much of a team effort it truly, truly is. Everything from curating barrels with cellar team to making the wort on hop side, it's truly a team effort. But that beer, aside from working here, it tastes great. It just tastes great. And I think winning an award at GABF this year really solidifies its place in Perrin's heart. Not that it ever wasn't. I mean, that beer, everyone's pretty proud of that beer. But it just goes to show, man, that beer still got it. And it's a delicious beer. I love drinking that one. I think they just handed, what we got here? Oh, these are some of the names. These are some of the names in the running that you guys entered. You can read through them. And yeah, you guys can still submit them. So
Yeah, so we're still in the submitting phase. I believe it's open until Thursday at midnight, if I'm correct. But we have already over 250 name submissions. You can submit as many names as you want. All you got to do is fill out your name, email, and the name of the beer that you want. So we got a few good ones. Remember that we are doing the stout porter with chocolate, caramel, and coconut. Top names so far are Gimme Samoa, Cocoa for Coconuts, Dark Chocolate Lava, Our Darkest Year, Fast Turtle, Midnight Macaroon, Sweet Dark Ocean Breeze, and Know Your Kids Cookie.
what was that one?
I don't know what that one was. You wrote it. Oh, not your kids' cookie.
Oh, okay.
Not your kids' cookie. You forgot the T, my friend. Pour some more of sugar on me. That is my favorite.
Pour some more sugar on me.
Cocoa Kringle. 2020 is coconut. Those are good.
Yeah, some real great submissions. These are. I love the humor in all of it. It makes it fun to choose and talk about. But you guys are knocking it out of the park. And just keep them coming.
We talk about ours, but we have Casey Conley, who's one of our brewers here. You can call him Hazy. But I think I know your answer. But Casey, what's your favorite Perrin beer?
Favorite it's not Dutch anymore. It was Brewers beer. Refuge Revenge. It's a rye IPA with Bretois yeast. So it's kind of had a little bit of a funk to it. Super tropical, fruity. Love to brew it again. Hopefully to do it. Another favorite of mine is Carrot Cake. That was another side series that we did, and pineapple upside down cake. Those are probably my two favorite.
Those are really good. All three of those beers are really good. What about non-Perrin Michigan beer?
Non-Perrin Michigan beer. Oh man.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Oh, there's a lot of good Michigan beers. It's kind of hard to, nail one down. I like to sample everybody's, so it's, I've got favorites at pretty much every brewery I go to. So, Michigan's a hard state to kind of pick a one, stellar beer because almost, like we're killing it. All the breweries are killing it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a good question. I think when answering that question, I think of styles because every brewery has their strong suits and what they do really well. I mean, I'm right now I'm digging the Mittens hazy game is surprisingly good. Those guys are killing it with their hazy game. Lagering, I mean, Wolverine State, they make some fantastic lagers. The hops also, they get some good lagering. But yeah, it's a tough question to nail down. What about you?
Again, tough question. I don't really have one right now just because of 2020. It's been so weird. I typically like to go to all the breweries and try what they've got new and that kind of thing, which has really been put on hold since March. So it's been a minute since I've really actually gone and visited a couple breweries with COVID-19 going around. So I can't really put my name on one, but
Yeah, for sure. I've been drinking a lot of Perrin beer just because we're here, we work here. Don't get much opportunity to go out because of the pandemic and yeah, so we've been a lot of pairing beer at the house, which is great. It's awesome.
How about any national beers that you wish you could get in Michigan that you can't?
National beers.
Or breweries outside of Michigan.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
have to be nationally distributed.
Shoot, that's another hard question. Metropolitan out in Chicago, lagers are fantastic. Dovetail out in Chicago, those lagers are fantastic. Unfortunately, they don't distribute out here, but those would probably be the two breweries that I know I crave for rough beer out of Dovetail. So, but yeah, those would probably be my two. Yeah. So we're not seeing any grain bed just yet. So we're just going to keep continuing the process of capturing into the kettle until we start to see the grain bed kind of peeking past the water level here. At that point, we will introduce our sparge water and get that process going. What about you, Chris? You got any
Seltzers, man. That's seltzer queen right there. Seltzers and tequila. If we could barrel age, I'd love to see Clear Coast barrel aged in a tequila barrel.
Oh my God, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. Tequila barrel aged Clear Coast. Yeah, exactly.
Casey, how about you? Beers that you wish you could get in Michigan that you cannot.
I've always wanted to try Russian River beers, Piney and all those. A lot of the East Coast breweries, Treehouse and Alchemy and all that stuff that, can't get it here, but you can see it all over the beer blogs and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't have the money to pay someone to go get it for me, so.
Yeah, like the Trilliums and breweries like that, for sure. You can't get any of that stuff out here. Russian River, it's a great one. I totally forgot about that. Even New Glarus out here now? No, I guess New Glarus stuff too. Yeah.
I'd like to see Remac from Sun King and Robert the Bruce from Free Floyd.
Oh yeah, Robert the Bruce.
Those Scotch ales that aren't too heavy on the caramel character.
Yeah.
I love those two beers.
Robert the Bruce was probably my first favorite craft beer. We always had that in the house growing up. And, yeah, my dad, he had a good palate. I'm surprised, really. I'm surprised. But yeah, Robert the Bruce, fantastic beer. Really good beer. Is there a style of beer that you would like to brew here, Casey? Or anything crazy you'd like to try?
I don't know. Always been a fan of smoked beers, Roush beers, and all that stuff. Not very popular style, but I feel if they're done right, they're good. If they're done wrong, they're pretty much undrinkable.
Yeah, there's a fine line, those styles.
But yeah, smoked beers. I'd like more sours. It'd be nice if we could start bringing back our sour series that we did a couple years ago, like the Friday one-off, sour stuff.
Yeah, kind of with you with the smoked beer. It's a weird style because we love to make them and drink them. I think as brewers, we find that style so interesting because of the complexity of how to make them, the fine line between good and unpalatable. The general public is it's not a sexy style. It's really not. Kind of an acquired taste, and put it next to a Scotch or cigars or something peated.
said smoked beer because the very first beer I made here was a smoked California Common.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that sounds great. How did that come out?
I thought it turned out great.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. That was my brewer's choice beer back in the day, so that was really nice. I drank so much of it and wish it could come back, but smoked beer.
Yeah, for sure. And for those who aren't familiar with the process of making a smoked beer, there's different malts available that you could throw into your grain bill to attribute some kind of smoke. There's, peated malt. There's cherrywood smoked malt. You could use beechwood smoked malt, which tends to be the most popular out of Weyermann, Germany. Weyermann malt out of Germany. They make a kind of roasted malt like that, or smoked malt. What was the smoked malt in yours?
It was the beechwood.
The beechwood, yeah. That's a great starting point for smoky malts. I've used that in the past too with great success. They do a good job at that one. Someone said bring that smoked Cali Common back. Wish I could have tried that one too.
Called it the California Con Man.
California Con Man. I like it. Oh, sure. Yeah, you can see those deep kind of tan, brown, chocolate colors going through there. Now they're really starting to, as they're heating up, they're foaming up, and that protein's being introduced. You kind of see that really nice color.
Just a reminder to everyone in the live chat, feel free to submit any questions you have just about pairing, about beer, us, home brewing, anything that you guys got. We're here to interact with you people at home, so happy to answer any and all questions. My favorite color is blue before you ask, just so you know, but ready for anything.
About time for that? Yeah, let's hit it. So it's about time for us to start that sparging process. The grain bed is starting to peak through the level of the water, letting us know that it's time to introduce more water. Basically, why we introduce water is to rinse out the residual sugars of the grain, and also so that there is free movement for that grain in there. We don't want it to get chunked up and get stuck on us. So by adding more water, we can ensure that the grain is fluid and not going to be completely compacted. So we're adding water here. You'll start to see that level go up. We typically aim for about 20 gallons per minute.
Steamed up.
So Casey, how did you get into brewing?
Got into brewing through a Christmas present from my wife. She bought me a Brewers Master 5-gallon pail set. Pretty much got hooked doing that. Then 2 years later, I brewed all the beer for my wedding. Did 3 different styles. Did a milk stout, aged on whiskey chips. I did a hopped red ale. Then I did a Pilsner. Yeah, and then shortly after getting married, I got the opportunity to be a featured home brewer at Gravel Bottom in Ada. Brewed a apple IPA, which is a very weird style. It's kind of like tastes like a hopped up like red ale kind of thing. Then a couple years later, I got the opportunity to go through the GRCC brewing school and landed a job here. And the rest is history. 4 years here, got on the brew deck for just over 2 years. Started in packaging, worked my way up through the different areas in the brewery.
Yeah, Casey's he's a very versatile part of the team. I mean, he literally can do everything here. I think we're all fortunate to have him. But so for advice for a home brewer, do you recommend schooling? Do you feel like that was a enriching experience?
Somewhat. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. You go to school, and a lot of it is relearning stuff because there's through the CC program you pretty much start from the beginning of what's malt, what's hops, what water profiles do. So you kind of go from the ground up. So it's kind of geared around people who may not have the homebrew experience, but also if you do have the experience, there is some stuff that you learn because you do go through like water profiles and the malting process and
Sure.
all that stuff, and then you get brewing techniques. Because you can do they have a 3-barrel system at CC. So there's a lot of different styles that you can do. That are difficult to do on a homebrew setup.
Yeah.
You got into like barrel aging and bottling and kegging, and so if you're interested in getting into the industry, looking into the programs could be beneficial, but don't think that just because you went to school you've got a leg up on anything. You still need to work hard. You can't rely on saying I went to school for it, so
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
More experience than schooling, I would say, but it doesn't hurt to have. I was lucky enough to have John Stewart, who was our old brewing manager. The guy knows more about brewing than anybody I've ever talked to.
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge. Yeah.
So it's if you can find that person that can inspire you and kind of mentor you, it'll get you a lot farther than any schooling will kind of get you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like it was a knowledgeable experience. You learn a lot from it. I've had an assistant brewer previously who went through the program who is now brewing at Trail Point, but he loved the whole experience. He learned a lot. I know we have staff here as well on our production team that went through the schooling program. But yeah, it's always nice, and that's why I asked. I was just curious as to what that process was like, and if any homebrewers out there were interested in doing it, it's good to kind of get some insight on that. Yeah. How did you get into brewing, Connor?
Kind of grew up in the beer business, to be honest. My grandpa started a beer wholesaler in Detroit. Then they bought the Anheuser-Busch wholesaler in town here back in, I think, 88 or 89. And that's when my parents moved over this way. And my dad and my uncle ran it for a long time. And so my first 3 or 4 jobs were working on a beer truck, merchandising, sales rep, working in a wholesaler. And that kind of piqued my interest in beer.
Yeah, that's cool.
More than just, selling Bud Light, that kind of thing. So one summer in college, I got an internship out in Colorado at Oscar Blues Brewery. And did a full, I think it was 12-week went through packaging, the cellar, lab, brewing, and all that, and absolutely fell in love with making beer.
Sure.
And then, I did another internship the following summer down in Miami, Florida at Concrete Beach Brewing, which was super awesome because they weren't actually brewing yet. I was installing tanks, doing glycol systems, and learning how the brewery was kind of built from the ground up. And then they actually recently just closed down, and they're transitioning into Dogfish Miami.
Oh, really?
So
wow.
that'll be the brewery that I was at there. And then my last year at Grand Valley, I reached out, started as an intern here, actually in sales, and then moved into production with the keg line, packaging, cellar, warehouse, hot side, and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
then I've been here for about 5.5 years.
Fantastic. Very cool.
We have Stephanie Perrin from France. She has the same last name as so,
Stephanie Perrin from France.
Shout out to the French.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Glad to have you. So that's a really unique experience. Now, you've literally seen step one of building a brewery, installing tanks, and then you've seen arguably the last frontier of selling wholesale and distribution.
Yep.
Do you feel like that experience on both ends, does that help you become a better brewer?
I think so, because you understand everything as a whole for the beer category a little bit better. Where, if you're just the wholesale side, you understand beer sales and what kind of goes into it, but you might not really know how much work it is to actually make the beer, especially not just how much work it is to make the beer, how much work it is to clean and maintain a brewery.
Yep.
Over half of brewing itself is actually just cleaning.
That's true.
That's a really big appreciation from that side. And then being on the brewery side, we do distribute beer throughout the state of Michigan. We have to work with wholesalers, and we have over 20 wholesalers in the state. And, you could get frustrated in one aspect, and then you can look back and go like, oh, they're not prioritizing my brands like they should be. And I can go back and look at what I did when I was there and be like, oh, yeah, well, that's why they have all these other breweries, and some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. And overall, I think it really does help.
Yeah. I could see how that experience would round you out for sure. I'm envious of not working in the distribution side of things. I think that is such a super knowledgeable experience, and just seeing how that is handled, how accounts are handled, how much volume you need to produce to meet these expectations from accounts. And that's all a great experience.
I think going from brewing to wholesale to retail, a lot of people at home don't understand how much work it really is to get beer from what we're doing right now to a store.
Yeah. Yep.
People just kind of go, oh, you make it and then it goes to the store. But, in Michigan, in the entire country, we have the 3-tier system. So manufacturer can't sell straight to retail with the exception of, I think it's 1,000. No, it's now 2,000 barrels.
Yep.
So you have to go through a distributor, which then has to sell to the retailer, and owners of those cannot have any part of one another.
That's right.
To not create a monopoly, and that stems from prohibition days once we repealed prohibition and came back from that. So it's a nice understanding what it really takes to get grain to wort to beer to package to wholesalers to retailers to your house.
Yep, absolutely. And basically what he's saying with the 2,000 barrel limit is if your brewery produces less than 2,000 barrels a year annually, you can go straight into a retail space and sell directly. I've had the experience of working with a distributor and also self-distribution for smaller breweries. And there's a lot of legal stuff that you have to go through, and it's nice for small breweries to have say in where they want their beers and accounts and stuff. Working with distribution has its pros. I mean, you can get out and reach a lot more spaces that you typically probably couldn't with a smaller brewery. So there's pros and cons there, and that's really cool experience you've had. So we're looking good in here. We've been sparging for a little while now. You can see that the grain is under the level of water, and that's typically what we want. We want to shoot for about an inch, inch and a half above the grain bed. So it might be hard for you to see, but you can kind of see a little bit of that grain bed underneath that water there. Yeah. So we're just maintaining this at a certain level. Right now we're going at about 7 gallons per minute. Get those lights on. 7 gallons per minute, just to maintain that level. And that'll also change throughout the entire process of sparging. As we get more liquid into more in the kettle, there'll be some back pressure there that we'll have to turn on the pumps and maintain that all. But right now we are rocking and rolling. So this is looking great. Yeah. So Chris, do you want to tell people a little bit about you and how you got involved with Perrin?
Perrin poached me from a brewery that's called Arcadia Ales about 3 or so years ago. Very happy to be with the Canarchy team. Helped launch High Lie in the state of Michigan. Helped launch the first commercial seltzer from a craft brewery with Clear Coast. Been a lot of fun.
And how long have you been with Canarchy and Perrin?
3 years, yeah. February 1 was the start date.
Very cool.
So, yeah, getting close.
So you're our boots to the ground. Do you notice any trends or anything out there? Has there been much significant change in what people are drinking now in comparison to 3 years ago?
Yeah, diet beers.
Diet beers, yeah.
Yeah, so everybody's drinking seltzers, a lot of clear liquid going out.
Sure.
A lot more of this crazy adjunct stuff. People are liking either full sweetness, pastry, New England IPAs, and seltzers.
Yeah. Do you think lagers will ever make a return?
I don't know. Maybe a gluten-free one, or if we could take all the carbs out of one, or something. The health-conscious consumer is really kind of changing the landscape here. The number of seltzers to beer ratio that's selling is just insane with all of the IRI data, which is where we pull from the chains, like Meijer and Walmart and stuff like that. It's just, I mean, they're billions and billions of dollars for White Claw and some of these other guys. So
yeah, it's wild to see that trend, you know.
Yeah, no one would have thought.
No one would have thought. Have you ever done any brewing in your past?
I'm not allowed to brew anymore. I've brewed twice. First time was at Arcadia, and we soured 200 barrels of Lockdown. The second time brewing here, we turned on the valve and dumped about 15 barrels of it before we noticed. So I do the camera, and I sell the beer.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. I didn't hear those stories. You did a one-off beer, right? We did 5 gallons of a beer with you, and
Space Station Swingers.
Yeah.
That had Tang, astronaut ice cream, pineapple juice. It was incredible. It's a quadruple New England IPA. Tasted somewhere around drinking a glass of orange juice and then brushing your teeth.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful mistake that hopefully we'll be bringing back sometime, but I highly doubt Connor will let me get near that thing again. So incredible was a personal opinion of Chris's, not a statement from the brewery.
I've heard stories of people asking when that's coming back.
There's a demand for it in Detroit of a bunch of people that have not tasted it. So
Sure.
Everyone that hasn't tried it wants it. Everyone that has regrets it. So maybe when we can do a party again, they'll let me hear this outcome. We'll see.
Casey, as a brewer, what was that beer like?
Unfortunately, I didn't really get to try it. Sold out really quick at the party.
There you go.
First beer sold out. Yeah. Yield was garbage. The yield was horrible. The biggest lesson we learned from that is don't ferment citric acid. It goes to a level of bitter that I didn't think was palatable. Nuts.
Yeah, I wish I would have tried that one.
We also put $200 in adjunct ingredients in it and came out with less than a 6 barrel. So it might be the most expensive beer we've ever produced.
Ever. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So Tang's not sold in the U.S. We had to actually import that from Mexico, and astronaut ice cream is outrageously overpriced.
So we are running the pump currently, transferring this wort on over to the kettle. We're fully open on that bladder valve, which is why we have to start using the pump. Essentially, the back pressure from the liquid in the wort will start to constrict the flow. So that's why we kick on the pump, and then we monitor that. We go up incrementally with the pump, so it's not full blast 100%. Otherwise, if we did that, it would just suck that grain bed down.
So is it like a siphon, or are we pulling?
We're pulling with the pump. So yeah, that pump is literally right underneath us on the platform, and it's just shooting it over that way. But we, like I said, we're starting slowly, and then we'll raise it up as our level goes up higher. We just kind of dictate the flow. If we did go full blast on the pump, we would suck that grain bed down and end up with stuck spard, stuck water. It would just be terrible. It would add a few hours to our day probably.
Let's not do that.
No, and everything seems to be going as planned. Not quite.
What?
Not quite. We still got, we're about halfway, I would say. Maybe less.
About 40 inches.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, about.
What do you
So this is, you can explain it if you want to. Go ahead.
What we had just added was perp cap. Basically like a silicone base chemical. It helps with foaming. Helps prevent boilovers. And yeah, you don't want to boil over, so this guy just breaks the surface tension and makes the foam dissipate.
That,
It's a Truman Show.
yeah. Pulling all right? With the pump going on? We have an evaporation. Well, this steam is not necessarily a loss for us. Our big evaporation rate and loss would come from the foil itself. This is just steaming because we're adding hot water. But we'll typically see about 4% of evaporation loss throughout the boil. So the point of the 90-minute, one, you're burning off any precursors of DMS or any off flavors. But probably the most primary point of the 90 is to help consolidate the sugars. So with the extended boil, we're burning off evaporating water, but those sugars still maintain. So it's just to condense those sugars and end up with a higher gravity product.
What type of chocolates are we adding?
So I believe we'll have to decide with Cellar, but I believe we're doing cocoa nibs, which essentially little pieces of chocolate. I don't believe we have any up there, but yeah, those would essentially just be steeped into the fermentation vessel after primary fermentation is complete. It'd be the same with the coconut and the caramel. I'm not exactly sure how that's being added. I'll have to talk with Cellar. I mean, absolutely, you can. That's one route you can go with. Another route would be an extended cold crash or moving it off yeast as much as you possibly can. Sorbate would definitely neutralize the yeast, though. And it all depends which route you want to go. If you're looking to bottle condition, you might want to keep some. You probably want to avoid the sorbate just so you can keep some fermentation in the bottle to carbonate it. But if you're going keg route, yeah, why not? You know, you would be all right. You'd be all right in adding that.
Thanks, Jonathan. He was the one that sent the questions.
Jonathan?
Yeah, Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan, for the questions. Hopefully, if you have any more questions, be sure to let us know. Hopefully, I answered them. I don't know if the microphone died, but I just heard a power off indicator.
Switch them out.
So again, is this working? Okay. I was going to say for home brewing purposes, your pre-boil gravity is going to differ from your post-boil gravity. This does have a boil addition of maltodextrin, and what maltodextrin is just an unfermentable sugar. It'll just have residual sugar, which in turn will create body in the final product. So, yeah, just keep in mind that your pre-boil gravity is going to alter from your final gravity because we're adding that maltodextrin, that sugar, into the boil. So that'll bump up your numbers a little bit. So if you look at like your pre-boil gravity and you're like, I'm 10 points under or whatever it may be, yeah, don't be discouraged. You'll add that maltodextrin and that should get you there. So any homebrewers out there, let us know how your product turns out when you do try it. We put out these homebrew recipes so you can brew along with us. We'd love some feedback on how you thought your version turned out, or if you're doing anything differently than we are. Yeah, we'd love to know. The reason why we keep looking at the screen here is to see how fast the pump is pulling. We can see exactly how much wort is coming through. So we just want to monitor that as well, so that it doesn't pull too strong or not strong enough. So that's what Casey's doing right now. He's paying attention to the numbers. He's kicking on the pump up and down if he needs to, just maintaining. So a lot of the job looks like we're just standing around, and a lot of times we are, but yeah, he's monitoring this whole process right now. How many viewers we got? Yeah. Right on.
So pineapple, papaya, clear coats, and a mezcal barrel.
Okay.
When can we do it?
I'm liking it. I'm liking it. You know, I would see. I'm not a fan of seltzers, but that's something I can get behind. You know, like
Smoky seltzer.
that's smoky seltzer. Like it. You said pineapple guava.
Pineapple, papaya.
Pineapple papaya. Oh, one of our existing. Okay. Pineapple papaya and mezcal barrels. That could be interesting. Imagine the color you'd pick up.
What?
You think you'd pick up any color from those from the staves?
How long you left it?
I'm thinking 5 years.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm gonna rep this out on this guy. Or even
I still think we just do it. That'd be fun. Well, you get a barrel of it. Put it on tap. Somebody would drink it. You'll drink it. Sell it to one of your accounts.
You can use it in a Fernet barrel. I can sell it all day.
Why do you think Fernet over the mezcal? Why do you think that would be better? Yeah, I love Fernet. That could be interesting.
Yeah. What was it? Did Rogue do a Malort beer?
Somebody.
Chicago does a Malort beer.
Yeah, I'm not sure who did it. If anyone in the chat knows, there's a Chicago brewery that used the Malort barrel in a beer. It might have been like off color, maybe.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
That would take all of the moisture out of your mouth.
Yeah. I mean, Malort, man, it's made with juniper berry, I believe, or wormwood. I think it's the wormwood. But yeah, I mean, bitter.
Yeah.
It's bitter. Yeah, it's pulling. So we're kicking it up. Like I said, we add more water as we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to move that. More water as we go. So right now we're doing something that we're cutting the grain bed, and that's basically to eliminate any channeling that we may get from this process. You want the grain to be fully incorporated with the water, just so you can pull the most out of it.
So channeling would be like a pipe.
Channeling, yeah, would be just having reservoirs or channels throughout the grain bed. So we want to incorporate all of it. So we're adding more water as we're cutting, and because of the absorption of the grain, it'll dry it out. Essentially, we're just taking stuff from the bottom, kind of moving it up. So we pick up our water additions. Basically, we're maintaining the same amount of water, but at the rate it's going in. If you remember earlier, I said about 7 gallons per minute is what we were doing, and now we are 20.
What do we do with all of our grain when it's done?
So we have a farmer who comes and picks it up from us, and then he uses it as feed. So it's a great thing that a lot of breweries do. It just helps give back to community and feed some animals, and it's just sustainable. The farmers love it. I've heard of places giving some grain to bakeries to make bread. You can totally make bread with this stuff. You can make soaps with it for its exfoliating properties. Yeah, yeah, this would be a large vat of soap. Yeah, we give it to a farmer who uses it in his farmer ways.
Have you tried any of his livestock?
I've not.
Who's our farmer?
Have you tried any of the livestock the farmer raises with our grain?
He's Illinois, I think.
Oh, he's a farmer now.
Yeah, he's from down south.
Okay.
I thought it was Indiana or Idaho or something.
I don't know exactly where he's from.
He's based out of Benton Harbor. And I think he brings it down to State Farm in Illinois, I think, or Indiana, somewhere just south of the border.
When do we turn the hat on?
The hat will turn on once the calandria is covered. Basically, when we get to our kettle full volume. This is probably the longest process throughout the entire day, the brew day, is the lautering, collecting in the kettle.
No longer called the China hat, right?
No, yeah,
That was what they called it.
yeah, technically it is, yeah. Yep, and so underneath that are a bunch of cylindrical kind of pipes that will shoot up underneath that spreader, and it'll spread that out. It's pretty mesmerizing. It looks just like a waterfall, but that's just pressure being built up from the steam jackets themselves.
So what is a boilover? What causes it? Too much pressure or too much heat? Or...
A couple of things. I mean, that's why we add that firm cap to help break down some of these the surface tension on that. But if you didn't do that, I mean, adding hops to an aggressively boiling beer would in turn create a boil over. Essentially, it just foams up almost instantaneously, and that's just the reaction from the oils of the hops into the wort. So that would be one way, and another way would just be, too much heat, just over boiling it, because then you're building up pressure when you're boiling, and there's nowhere for it to go except for this opening here. So having that opening and your face right here, it could potentially be very dangerous. So yeah, we have a way on our program or system here to monitor the amount of steam coming through. So we definitely want to do our best at monitoring.
It's pretty common with home brewing.
It,
Pop a bucket.
well, that's the fermentation side of things, and that can tend to be more of an issue with just a vigorous fermentation. You'd see the pop buckets and stuff and clogged up blow off valves just due to the amount of headspace in solution or in the fermenter. If you don't have enough headspace for that yeast and the beer at that point to kind of rise and fall, so krausening is the process. Then yeah, you can end up with a dirty ceiling. But in terms of kettle boilovers, yeah, you see that in home brewing. It's definitely happened to me, which is just you throw those hops in, and that hop break will just kind of start. And it's easy to control. If you're a home brewer, you basically just lower that temperature of your flame or whatever you use in the boil. That would be one way to stop a boil over. So for us, we have valves behind the kettle that we can control with the software to shut or lower or raise the amount of steam coming through. So yeah, it's just the same thing.
Turn the rake off.
Yeah. So we performed that cut. Now we got that grain almost completely submerged, but we're going to continue to add water. We have a predetermined amount of sparge water we're adding, and we have flow meters on the system to tell us how much water is being added and at the rate it's being added. So we are adding 550 gallons of RO water on top of this, and right now we're at 370.
So that makes what, 1,500 gallons total?
Yeah, I believe so, around there. 1,600. Yeah. And then, yeah, we get that predetermined amount, which makes it easier for us to treat the RO water that's being introduced here. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, RO is zero minerality. There's no minerals in the water, so we have to build it with minerals to achieve a proper water profile. Water profiles change throughout region. I mean, you look at lager brewing, and you can see that like Czechoslovakian pilsners have mineralization in their water that makes them so special, so unique. But yeah, for this beer, we typically want to lower our sulfate level and up our chloride level. And chloride will help with the mouthfeel, the perception of sweetness and roundness, where sulfate will help with the kind of bittering and sharp dryness that you would want in like an IPA. So for every style, there are certain things that you would probably want to treat for. The fact that we use RO, we treat everything. Yeah, typically I like to check our runnings or gravity and solution as we're filling, just so we can kind of foreshadow what our gravity is going to be like, and it changes all throughout. You know, we add really condensed sugar at the beginning, but then we're also introducing water, so it thin it out. But at the end, the end result should be a predetermined number. But I like to check it just to see how close we are, how much more we got to go. And there's a couple different trains of thought, depending on the brewer you talk to. Some brewers, they brew for volume, or they brew to gravity. So say we're brewing a 30 barrel batch, but at 20 barrels, we're at our predetermined pre-boil volume or gravity. Some brewers would stop it there and say, well, this is the volume, this is the gravity we're shooting for, maybe less than what we're going for. And the other train of thought is you aim for that gravity and or your amount, and hopefully it'll get that gravity. So there's a bunch of different formulas that you can work throughout the recipe design process and kind of save you there.
Connor, you want to talk about the expected release or anything like that? Save that to the end. Okay.
So this beer is going into fermentation vessel 27, and where these are right out here, they're 1 through 4. So you can imagine that 27's way in the back over there. But we use these fences. We use these fences that allow us to transfer beer to any part of the cellar. So we run, sanitation cycles on the overhead fences. When we say fences, they're essentially just piping. So they'll go from the bottom of the ground up and then over, and then you can pipe them however you want to get them to wherever you want. Yeah, essentially. Yep. So I believe we're all hooked up over there, right? Yeah, we're all hooked up at 27. So that line, the fence line, is all sanitary already. So when we're done with the boil and send it through the heat exchanger, we'll go up and over. Just came through.
Oh, finally? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll start busting on PBLA.
Now, is there a market for that?
It's brewed in Lansing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it is Michigan. That's right. Do you think there's the market for that? Right, it's advertised as the adult Pedialyte.
It's a rehydration drink.
Yeah.
So you can't say too much of it on the internet. I'll get in trouble.
Yeah, we'll monitor the steam coming up there. We still got a little while to go for our volume, but it's like, yeah, it's right at that point. It's not fun if you're claustrophobic, for sure. A lot more space in there than you'd probably think.
Put in perspective how big these tanks actually are and how much beer that's actually being inside one of them. The fact that you and I can fit in a tank is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
That's all liquid going into beer. Yeah.
Yeah. And if anyone watching has any recommendations on beer that you would like to see Pair and Brew, let us know. I'm curious to know what you guys want us to make for you.
Maybe in lager.
Like Moosehead?
Molson. When we go back to hockey games.
Labatt's a big thing out here. Yeah. I've actually never had a Labatt until moving to Michigan.
Yeah. Delicious beer. Yeah. Molson used to sell 28 packs of bottles at Costco for like $18.
Oh.
Great deal. It was the best package they ever had. Diesels only. Yeah.
Yeah. What other? Do you guys have a favorite cheap domestic can?
It's somewhere between Natter Days and PBR. like to rotate between the two. You can't drink too much of one of them.
Sure. Yeah, natural light. How about you, Casey?
I don't know. Probably like Natty Light or Bush.
Bush, yeah.
Pretty much anything you get in a hoodie wrap.
Yep.
Camo cans.
Camo can.
So yeah.
What about the beer that got you into craft?
Beer got me into craft was Sam Adams. Their winter variety pack. That kind of that was my go-to during the winter. Buy a couple of those, and it's like those are first, look into like craft beer. There's a lot of people who that's kind of the wider, distributed craft beer.
Yeah.
I think my first local was Founders.
Founders, yep.
Centennial. IPA was my first beer in Michigan. Craft beer.
Yeah. My favorite cheap beer is Old Style. And Coors Banquet's up there, though. And craft beer that got me into craft beer, I guess. Probably two of them that are standouts. Gumball Head and Magic Hat Number 9. Those two they probably played the biggest role. And then again, Boston Lager, I guess the three. How about you, Connor?
Well, it was really actually a craft beer.
Oh, yeah?
That was kind of the beer that got me into just more beer, I guess, coming into more European styles, which later transitioned into craft beer. And Boston Lager was a big part of it. And then Michigan, Dirty Bastard was one of my favorites for a long time. And then Pairing Black, to be honest.
Yeah.
Black was the reason I wanted to start working here, because I love that beer. It's drinking it so much.
Sure. And yours?
Just giving a 12-pack or a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada Celebration for my 21st birthday. So we'll call that one my first craft beer. Had a couple of weird ones from a northern brewery. They did a peanut butter series in 2010. There was one good one in that pack, so I kind of got turned off to craft beer for a little bit. But Sierra Nevada has always been a staple.
Yeah. Yep. Sierra Nevada, Pale Ale, Torpedo. Yeah. Yep. Those are all big beers for me as well.
I went straight to hops. IPAs never really bothered me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, same here. I never had a problem with hop bitterness.
Yeah. Drinking a lot of black coffee. I think that helps.
Yeah. I think I gravitated more towards hoppy styles than I did darker styles. When I first started drinking, the barrel aged beers were really intimidating. I thought it was too much.
Oh yeah.
And then after a while, you just start to appreciate the process and the flavors that barrels attribute. And now I love them. So.
I miss big West Coast IPAs.
Yeah, me too.
Hop Stupid, Optimum.
Yeah.
Anything that was hop and an animal for a while there was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I still love. Been a long time since I've had it. I don't even know if they produce it anymore. Green Flash's IPA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one was one of my favorites for a long time.
That's just good here too.
Yeah, it is.
I'd love to see a double highlight. That would be sweet. Or if you've done it, I haven't drank it. So. Speaking of, what about shout out to our family, other canner community that I really enjoy. Anyone at home that doesn't really know, we're partners with other breweries around the country called Canarchy, Oscar Blues, Cigar City, Deep Ellum, Three Weavers, and then Squatters and Wasatch as well. So partners with them along with us here, and we get to drink everybody's beer and collaborate. So it's a lot of fun. How about other Canarchy beers that you guys really enjoy?
Yeah, I guess one that sticks out to me is Gale's Pale. I mean, it was super highly sought after. I remember not being able to find it anywhere, and that would be one. Oscar Blues Day with Pale Ale. Yeah, I guess that would be it. I mean, Highlight too. I mean, Highlight was a huge beer for me. And, you know, I working here at Parent, I got to meet Wayne Wambles, which is like, you know, dude's like a celebrity in my eyes. Yeah, I grew up kind of drinking his beer, and to actually brew it with him was like, holy cow, it's kind of cool. So I guess those two, right? So, how about for you?
For each brewery, I love Old Shed. That was my favorite when I was staying out there. But Fifth Street is fantastic. And then, you know, Star City, go through there is Maduro.
Yeah.
Brown Ale, absolutely love that. And Three Weavers, they're both Seafair and Day Job with Pale Ale. Can't drink enough of those. And, you know, the other breweries, I just unfortunately haven't had too many of them because they are a little farther out.
Yeah.
Northern Reporter from Squatters, Wasatch is a good one, and Deep Elm might be it. Deep Elm is always solid when I have had it.
Yeah. That porter's, they've gotten some recognition for that beer, right? That's one of their more popular styles. I have yet to try that one, but yeah.
Really dig Hop Rising from Squatters. Other one's better. Florida Cracker, that's another easy drinking summer beer. High Lie, obviously that's the top IPAs for me. Death by Coconut, that's another one of those, you know, big beers that I like out of Oscar Blues. So, yeah.
You get to see a lot coming through, Chris. Is there any that really stand out to you?
Strawberry Coconut, Wild Basin. Might be my favorite liquor
Yeah.
to make. Margarita Goza from Cigar City is fantastic. Expatriate, Three Weavers is great. Have not had enough of the Squatters stuff. I need to. Same thing with Wasatch. They've got some good liquid and they're rebranding right now. They got a Juicy. It's fantastic. Also, Oscar Blues, they made the 10-3 variant. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago we had it. It has like a Rasta colored can and some Java version. I couldn't remember the name. That was awesome. And I don't like dark beers, so that was a good.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that one sounds interesting. I'd love to try that one too.
Yeah, those back in the 19.2 ounce cans were still there. I think that was our what's our anarchy party down there? We had data band, right? Sorry, Burning Can. Yeah, that was Burning Can in Colorado. One of the old sales guys brought some back for us, so that was fun. Like barrel aged Death by Coconut.
Huh.
That was the real deal.
Yeah, so we got our volume of sparge water into the vessel now. Basically, what we're doing now is just gonna pull the remainder of that liquid out into our kettle, and yeah, and then we will begin to boil, and then there add our hops. But yeah, basically what we're doing now is just collecting the rest of this to hit our pre-boil volume. So the water's done at this point. We're gonna get our water salts for the sparge water into the kettle once we get up to volume.
Your electronics.
The pump probably just taken
a
on.
lot of pumps and
Yeah.
stuff in the background.
Yeah, the entire brewery.
What are you guys excited to eat for lunch?
No, I haven't thought about it. I hadn't thought about it. You know, we got a lot of cool things on this new menu. If you guys hadn't checked out yet, you should. I'm a big fan of that. We do a goat cheese and mushroom sandwich. That is super good.
We're open for takeout. Yep, we're open for takeout, and like Eric said, we just got a new menu too, so I've been finding my way through the menu. Still got a couple more burgers to try, but that, I think it's called the Hang Ten. It's a Hawaiian with pineapple, and that one is killer. So I've been digging that a lot.
Yeah, it seems to be a favorite around here. I've yet to try it. The pineapple turns me off. I'm not a big fan of pineapple. You guys put it on your pizza? You put it on your pizza too, don't you?
I've got a pineapple onesie. I got a pineapple shoes. Yeah. I got pineapple movies. I got meat on it. What's that thing called?
I don't know. Is there a fun name for this thing? Sample cup? Sample cup. It's just, you know, used to get samples that typically couldn't get.
204.
204. Is it Karen, you said?
Jordan.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Thanks for the shout out. We love Karen Black as well. Glad you enjoy that beer.
How much Karen Black do you brew a year?
Ooh, that's a kind of question. You know off the top of your head?
No, off the top of my head. It's a lot. It's our flagship. It's the majority of the beer that we make here. It's a good style. It's a flagship that not a lot of other brewers have. Really think about the state of Michigan. And I'm just saying Michigan because that's the only place we distribute. Most people's flagships are all IPAs, so it's kind of nice to have a rarer or just different style of their flagship to kind of set us apart.
Yeah.
We obviously make IPAs with 98 Crown, the whole Crown series, and Call Me Hazy. And we're actually looking to develop a couple new IPAs right now, too. One will be called 5910, which is just our address. So going back to our roots with some good West Coast style IPAs. And then we'll be doing another double IPA for distribution in six-packs called Double Pack. So looking forward to getting those out as well.
Yeah, that 5910 is going to be really interesting. It's using some Sultana hops, which are formerly known as Denali, and also Talus, which is it's the same hop grower that grew Citra and Sabro released Talus, and Talus is kind of highly stone fruit, effervescent or aromatic, orange. I think it'll play well with the Sultanas that we're throwing in there as well. And the double pay is using some Simcoe, Amarillo, some Citra in that as well.
I'm going to take you over to see where you can start to see the grain bed in here.
We can kind of see spots of, where that dark malt kind of floated around here. As we go, our volume gets lower, the grain bed itself will start to compact and pull from the sides. That's just letting us know that it's relatively dry in there. There's still some water. You can see some kind of pulling.
So you gonna spin it anymore?
No, we're done with the spinning. So yeah, we're just capturing and almost there. 50.
Yeah, we tried to we filmed the site class last time. It was weird. They were almost focused on it.
Our gravity's around there. We'll just probably cut it. Yeah. Spin it out too much. It could be pretty high. Not a good. We usually have music playing, but
Facebook will shut us down.
oh yeah, the music. There you go.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Good old copyright laws. YouTube definitely will shut us down.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So we turned on the steam here. So we'll start to see movement in that hat. It's not necessarily boiling, but it's just recirculating that wort through the calandria. Yeah, we can close this for a little bit if you need to. You're fine right there. Yeah, just cut it. Yeah, cut her down. All right, so we are at our gravity that we're looking for. We're going to stop the transfer now. We have all of our usable wort in the kettle at this point. We will drain it, get a reading on our last runnings, essentially, and begin the boiling process. I'm gonna go weigh out salt. Hey Chris, I'm gonna go weigh out salt.
Yeah.
Was this here last running? Pre-boil? Yeah. Cool. You want to weigh out hops?
Check that.
Okay, great. So yeah, we are basically coming up to a boil here. You can see that wort spreader in the calandria just becoming really active, and that's all pressure from the steam shooting that guy up. So at this point, we will be boiling for an hour and a half, adding our hops at 60 and 45 minutes remaining in the boil. The 60-minute edition, we're doing that German Magnum I talked about briefly. It's kind of known for its clean bittering properties, and the same with Summit. Summit's going on at that 45 minute. The reasoning between these two hops, or why we chose them, they're really high up in alpha acids, which basically tells us that these are meant for bittering. They're known for the bittering properties. So with that, we will also be adding the maltodextrin throughout the boil as well, which is again that unfermentable sugar that will help us boost up our gravities so that we can meet the numbers that we need to meet and have this beer ready for you when it's ready. We'll be adding the adjuncts in cellar. So again, with the chocolate, the caramel, and the coconut. But today's part of today, or the point of today, is to make that work as our starting point, our base beer, making sure we hit all the numbers that we need to. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a blast. And with that, I think anything you want to add? Are we good?
We can talk about, so you kind of just gone through the boil, but after the boil, we're going to knock over into the whirlpool, and open that up and show you inside there.
Yeah. So.
Do you want to explain what's going on in the whirlpool?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Connor mentioned, once we're done with the boil, we are pumping this to the whirlpool. Now the point of the whirlpool, as you look in here, the point of the whirlpool is to collect all of the hop residue, protein residue that's left after boil, and kind of collect it to the center of this vessel, so that when we do transfer this beer through the heat exchanger into the fermenter, we leave behind as much residue as we possibly can. We want to end up with a clean beer, a clear beer, and leave all of the residue behind. So that's the point of this vessel here. So we'll send it over after boil and let it rest for about 15 minutes. So that way it starts to collect at the bottom of this kettle. And then we will pull directly from the side of it through the heat exchanger, which we use to cool that down to a livable temperature for the yeast. This guy, I believe, is 68 degrees. And we cool that down using water. So we take cold water from our CLT, or cold liquor tank that we mentioned earlier, run it through the heat exchanger while that boiling wort at that point goes to the fermenter. So then we will monitor the temperature on our system here, making sure that we are exactly the livable temperature for the yeast to do its work. And then from there, it'll take its time fermenting out, and then we will adjunct it with the flavors you guys selected. So yeah, I think we're good. I think that's it. All righty. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers. We'll keep you updated on this beer.